Welcome to NocBro Nation.
Welcome back, guys. Jarrell here.
And I am Josh. And ladies and gentlemen, it has been quite some time since the Avengers Endgame movie has been released. And since then, there's a lot of material that's been released as far as, deleted scenes and other extra goodies that we actually missed in this movie. So what we have for you today is a reaction of everything that was cut from the final battle of Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, so guys, I mean, the DVDs are coming out. People are posting, like, deleted scenes. I actually did get the concept art book of, like, different things that they were doing concept art of. And some of those things in there, like what Thanos was going to look like. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
The certain armor that they were probably going to use for him was just absolutely insane. And even the other characters, too. So, I've heard that there was a lot of things cut from the final battle just because of time and probably CGI money.
There was also other things that were cut from the battle because it was too gruesome, like Tony Stark and his death scene.
Right.
He was supposed to look a lot worse.
Half his face burnt, which
eyeball hanging out.
Yeah, which would be true. Like, it would probably happen that way.
Absolutely, but it was a little too brutal for a lot of the children viewers, and honestly, I kind of agree, because they felt like that brutalness would have taken away from his death. You would have concentrated so much on how brutal it was that it kind of would have taken away from his sacrifice.
Yeah. Definitely. So, guys, this is from Screen Rant. Those guys do an awesome job with giving us the details that we want. So we are ready to check this out. It's about 10 minutes. So we hope you guys enjoy our reaction and also enjoy some of the information that you may not have known.
Yeah, heads up, guys. We are looking this way at our monitor. So
let's do
it.
Assemble.
Avengers Endgame was the movie event of the decade. Fans waited over 10 years to see the culmination of the Infinity Saga, and they were not disappointed with the concluding chapter.
No, give me that. You have the little one.
The film was surprisingly slow in the opening chapters, but ramped up in intensity, culminating in one epic battle scene in the finale. But while there was a lot to pack into those 3 hours, there was quite a bit that was cut, specifically from the jaw-dropping, crowd-pleasing final battle between every single MCU hero and the hordes of Thanos.
That was an awesome battle. Awesome battle.
Speaking of Thanos, let's start things off with him. For most of his screen time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Thanos was just an angry purple alien sitting on a throne barking orders. In all honesty, if you never read a Marvel comic, you likely were not impressed with the promise of Thanos. Yet we knew that he was going to be the big bad that culminated 10 years of storytelling. So there had to be more to him than sitting down. Thankfully, Infinity War delivered on everything that makes Thanos great and then some. This resulted in him becoming one of the more compelling villains in the entire saga. He was ruthless, calculating, deranged, emphatic, and so much more. But there was more to Thanos that was cut during Endgame.
Like you wanted more?
Yes,
and
I did
thanks
want
to
more.
some gruesome imagery, we totally understand why this one was left on the cutting room floor. During the final showdown between the Avengers and Team Thanos, things are fairly straightforward, as Thanos from 2014 is brought to 2023 to make sure his original plan doesn't get undone, as the Thanos from the past learned that his future self was axed off and that Earth's mightiest heroes seek to undo what original Thanos has done.
That is destiny fulfilled.
Even in his 2014 version that hasn't committed universal genocide, Thanos is imposing and a force to be reckoned with. But in his original pitch version of an encounter with the Avengers, things would have been way more harrowing. The pitch...
Real quick, he actually did commit genocide prior to 2014. He even says it before... while Captain America's down on the ground, he says, in all the slaughter and all the whatever, I'm going to enjoy doing this to your planet. So he was pretty brutal across the universe.
Yeah, he was.
Saw 2014 Thanos find the Avengers in his 2014 timeline and utterly destroy them all before making his jump into the future to face them again on the battlefield. When he was to come face to face with the team that lobbed off the original Thanos' melon at the beginning of Endgame, he kindly returned the favor by tossing the head of Captain America onto the battlefield before the Avengers. The scene was meant to throw the Avengers off their game, using fear as a tactic to illustrate that he's already beaten them and that he is about to do it again. To quote Joe Russo, "We had most of the script working except for the third act, because Anthony and I were clinging to this concept that we wanted Thanos to walk up to the Avengers and throw Captain America's head on the ground. It wasn't just the Russos that seemed to be obsessed with the idea of skulls and heads when coming up with imagery for Thanos. Kevin Feige himself was toying with the idea of Thanos operating from a throne of skulls and bones, and Thanos would lob Cap's head like a bowling ball towards the Avengers from his heavy metal inspired throne that would put the one from Game of Thrones to shame. Not exactly the best imagery for a PG-13 blockbuster concluding chapter, but they were seriously tempted. In fact, it seems that logistics and storytelling in getting Thanos from A to B was more of a concern in this account than the imagery itself, as the team felt having Thanos bounce around or having the Avengers go into his ship to see the throne didn't make sense. So the concepts were scrapped in favor of Thanos' ship simply landing and Thanos getting straight to business. Regardless, the scene was never shot, leaving us only to imagine what a hardcore Thanos would have been like. Just about all of the final battle in Endgame is on the ground, with Thor, Cap, and Iron Man having a more intimate duel with the Mad Titan before literally everyone gets involved once the snap is undone and emerges on the battlefield through the magic portals. As mentioned, most of this battle is on the ground, with Iron Man, Rescue, and War Machine flying in the sky alongside some Ravager ships and Pegasus from New Asgard in some quick shots. But there was something that was cut from the sky in this instance, and that was Kraglin's big moment.
I heard about that, but I didn't.
In this cut sequence, Kraglin fights an aerial battle that was actually shot but cut from the final sequence. Fans will be happy to know that Kraglin has a similar metallic mohawk to Yondu's from the first Guardians film and still has his fancy lethal arrow with him too. Sadly, he didn't get to use it in this particular sequence as he was too busy flying about in a Ravager ship. Seeing as the scene relies heavily on green screen, we don't have to know who Kraglin would be sharing the sky with, but we can assume that this bit would have likely involved the Ravagers teaming up with the Wakandan airships to fight the airborne Chitauri.
Cool.
But seeing as so many recognizable heroes were fighting on screen together for the first time, the aerial battle with ships and one minor character was understandably cut. Justice for Kraglin, anyone?
Yeah.
This wasn't the only heroic moment that got slashed from the climactic battle in Endgame. This was the scene that brought all the heroes from all franchises together, and as such, we got some pretty awesome and unlikely team-ups during the epic battle. One such moment was unfortunately left out of the movie, and that moment involved a team-up between Okoye from Black Panther and Valkyrie from Thor Ragnarok, and the upcoming Thor Love and Thunder. And while all the ladies of the Marvel Cinematic Universe did get their moment to shine together, Okoye and Valkyrie actually had a scene featuring just the two of them. Thanks to unused concept art, the duo was intended to swap their respective weapons with each other, allowing an Asgardian to fight with a Wakandan weapon and vice versa. It would have been cool and a fun little moment, but in the midst of a ton of fan service and epic wins, it likely had to be shaved out of the movie as it was already pushing 3 hours in length and the film already included a weapon swapping scene when Cap began to use Mjolnir in battle, which, let's face it, that moment was so awesome that any other weapon swap scene would have paled in comparison. Speaking of Cap lifting Mjolnir, which may be the movie moment of the decade, there was some stuff centered around that whole entire bit that didn't make the final cut of the movie. There's unused concept art for Endgame that shows a reluctant and uncertain Steve Rogers attempting to lift the hammer. While the artwork looks like Steve is reaching for the hammer, the artist for that specific piece, Ryan Meinerding, stated that he wanted Cap to feel uncertainty about whether or not he could actually be worthy of lifting up the hammer from the ground, rather than it flying straight into his hand.
Well,
as you all remember, the Mjolnir gag was set up all the way back in Age of Ultron when Cap attempted to lift the hammer from the table, resulting in these smallest of budgets. This scene was initially meant to invoke that scene, but we think that the final result in Endgame was more surprising and satisfying. So we know the final battle was awesome and was immensely crowd-pleasing, but it was already pretty long, which is why there are so many cuts to the action sequences to begin with. This scene no doubt would have made the scene even longer, but likely would have felt more like padding as opposed to offering anything of real substance. But thanks to a leaked behind-the-scenes photograph, it looks like there would have been a small reprieve in the action for our heroes as they huddle up in a trench, preparing for the next move. The scene in question was said to be around 3 minutes in length, which is a pretty long scene of dialogue while in the middle of a battle, especially when the battle is against Thanos and his horde.
It would have been cool to see them all together.
It likely broke the flow of the action, which is why it was scrapped from the movie in favor of keeping the momentum going, and that's coming from the writers of the movie themselves. Chris Marcus and Stephen McFeely. The pair thought that breaking up the action for a, quote, fake and fraudulent scene, end quote, with no natural dialogue felt so weak that they didn't even believe the scene would make the final cut. The film was a lengthy one, and that may have been part of the reason as to why this next scene was cut,
was the last
as it
one.
was ultimately redundant despite being visually awesome. After declaring for the final time that he is Iron Man and sacrifices himself for the universe, Tony dies.
Iron Man.
The Avengers, no matter from what corner of the world, all take a knee, as they've likely heard of him if they didn't directly know him. That is, everyone but Gamora, who is the 2014 version of the character in this scene. As
That's one I
everyone
disagree. I
falls to
think
their
they should have
knees,
kept
she
that
is
in.
left standing, unfamiliar with who Tony is. The Russos ultimately cut this scene as they felt it took some of the thunder away from the upcoming funeral scene. One thing that this scene does confirm, though, is that 2014 Gamora is 100% alive and well, a fact that we assumed but didn't get any clear answers by the end of the movie. One of the people at the funeral scene was naturally Morgan Stark, daughter of Tony and Pepper. Morgan was a surprise addition to the narrative as Endgame jumps the narrative 5 years into the future and Tony is settled into a domestic lifestyle with a family.
I love you 3000.
But while Morgan was played by Lexi Rave, she wasn't the only actress set to play Morgan in Endgame.
I've heard about
Catherine
this.
Langford, perhaps best known thanks to her role in 13 Reasons Why, was also brought on to play an
What was the
older
deleted
version of
scene in
Morgan.
the
After
DVD?
Tony snapped his fingers wearing the gauntlet, he was initially supposed to have his own metaphysical moment, much like how Thanos saw Gamora after his own snap in Infinity War. The Russos decide that audiences don't know Morgan that well yet, and breaking away from the action to spend time with a minor character may have been nice for Tony, but may have taken the audience out of the film a bit to see a new version of Morgan appear so suddenly. Instead of having a deep moment, we would have likely been wondering who this person is at first, which would have taken away from the scene. At least we know Tony got to see Morgan grow up, sort of, before leaving us for good. Despite Langford being cast in the movie, this important deleted scene has yet to actually surface, making us wonder
Yes,
if
it
the
has.
Russos
It's
even got around
surfaced.
to filming it,
Yeah.
despite Langford being cast. Do you think this scene should have been left in the movie? Let us know. Those are all the scenes that we found that were cut from the final epic battle in Avengers Endgame. Do you think Marvel and the Russos should have kept some of these scenes in the final cut of the film, or were they wise
Well,
in
let's
trimming down the
discuss.
fat, so to speak? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in your playlist every day. Thanks for watching.
Well, I mean, yeah, there was a lot that was, they're going to cut things for time, but I mean, going back to what you said with the whole Tony Stark thing, with them showing them kneeling at that deleted scene, I think it would have worked. But I think
so,
people,
too.
but I also understand the side where, because I remember when the deleted scene came out, people were like, "Oh, Gamora's not kneeling." Well, that's not the Gamora that they knew. That's the Gamora that has no idea who these people are. And then it was like, I think it was Captain Marvel was like the last one to kneel or whatever. It's just her personality. It's not what she does. So, I mean, she eventually did. But,
Well, I mean, you could make an argument that Gamora, even the past Gamora, didn't even really know Tony Stark. So.
But she would have kneeled. But that was just a minor thing.
Yeah, you
But-
know, I that is the one scene that I truly think should have been left in, because they're saying that it kind of took away from the funeral scene. I think it actually was a good segue into the funeral scene. I mean,
Yeah.
not only are they paying homage to someone that just literally saved everyone's life, but
Exactly.
they are now having to grieve for that person as well. So
I think it would have worked.
I think it would have worked.
Because it would have, like you said, it would have rolled right into the funeral and they're still paying their respects again, but it would have meant more truly paying their respects on the battlefield.
Yeah.
After he just saved the entire world and many worlds out in the universe. Yeah, I think it would have done
Yeah, I
better.
definitely think the chopping off of Captain America's head was a little too brutal, but would have been interesting. Well, I mean, so if they would have done that, you would have lost the Mjolnir scenes.
Mhm.
So I can kind of see why they didn't do that, just not only because it was too brutal.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
They call it on the, if you guys have Disney Plus, it's actually on Disney Plus Endgame, but they're calling it Tony Stark at the Way Station or the Way Depot or something like that. But that is Tony in his metaphoric state seeing his daughter
Right.
and
Yep.
having a conversation with their daughter. It's actually an amazing scene.
It's really good.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I did. I get why they couldn't put it in there.
Yeah, and like some other ones that they've said with some of the characters that could have had some cool team ups and weapon swaps. Yeah, I get why they pulled it. It would have been cool for us to see just because it's the final battle. But yeah, the major weapon swapping between Thor and Captain America, that was the big one, and you would forget about the others because it was minor. But I mean, honestly, I thought there was going to be more that they would have cut. I'm pretty sure maybe Screen Rant didn't grab everything at that point in time. I'm not sure how old that video was, maybe a little while ago, but I figured there would be a lot more that they would have cut from
It was old enough to not to say that, you know, the Tony Stark scene with his daughter was not out yet. That's been months since that's been out. So I think this is a fairly older video, but still, there were some things in there I didn't know. The team up one between the Valkyrie and I forgot what Michonne's name is.
Denai Guerrero's character. Yeah.
Denai Guerrero.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the Captain America one I knew that was, but man, I did not know that they were going to cut to his skull throne.
Yeah.
Like, that would have been amazing. I mean, if you guys can see here, I'll just grab it. They have one that's like this, where he's sitting on the skull throne.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely amazing.
It's gorgeous. I'll throw up a picture of that. It's absolutely amazing. It's expensive. I think it's a couple $1,000s.
I think it's like
beautiful.
$2,500, I think.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's really cool.
I think it lights up too.
Yeah, I think it does.
It's
really awesome.
Amazing. If I had the money,
and it's it's based off the comic version of Thanos, so it's pretty cool. But yeah, this was pretty cool. I mean, I hope that I'll have to look on YouTube, or if you guys let us know if anybody else has kind of done a similar video like that. I've looked at not just cuts from Endgame itself, but a lot of cool cuts, maybe from Infinity War and from Endgame that may have worked. Or I would love somebody to put like a video out there of all the deleted scenes across the entire movies of everything that they cut, that they're releasing. Sweet. That would be cool. So get to work.
They're still releasing that stuff today. Like, I think last week there was a release of something that was cut from Ragnarok.
Yeah.
So they're still, I mean, and that's what I love about the MCU universe is that we're still getting little nuggets and tidbits of stuff years after the movies are released.
Yeah. So we hope that you guys might do the work for us and give us a video that we can react to of everything that was cut through the entire space of the universe, guys. So let us know what you think in the comments, and make sure you give the video a quick like. Feel free to subscribe. Stay tuned for more trailer reactions and everything else we have here on the channel. I am Jarrell.
I'm Josh.
We're NocBro Nation.
We're out.